So, you've got a problem. And of course, by clicking on this video, I already know what it is. You're struggling with maladaptive thoughts, daydreams, or things you might be telling yourself. To put it pretty straightforward, I struggled with this for a very, very long time. As far back as I can remember, it started when I was around 11 or 12 years old. I started having really negative self image issues as well as body image issues, and my thoughts began to spiral from there. Not only that, but I also began to become trapped within these fantasies of me going into conflict with people I had recent conflict with and people who I had terrible relationship with in general. This was only detrimental. It acted as a cycle of me finding a flaw within myself and then me finding a daydream to escape from it. This only made things worse because I would become upset with myself for daydreaming, and then my only way of coping with it was by daydreaming further. And it was this vicious cycle of me being upset with the way I thought, the way I looked, and the things that I would think about. It took me approximately 6 to 8 years before I realized that this was getting toxic to the point where I couldn't focus, I couldn't do school, and I couldn't focus on my goals and dreams. And the realization about this really started, I think, when I started working, for example. I got a new job and I was vulnerable, which was another fear of mine. And I had avoided being vulnerable for so long. And when I was at my job, it required me to focus, and I had to allow myself to be vulnerable to people's opinions of me and what they would say about me and how I performed at my job, and etc. This is when I realized that I need to sit down with myself and I have to mentally talk to myself. I remember this one night where I just looked in the mirror and I had this conversation with myself about how I really needed to get my act together and how I needed to just quit daydreaming completely. I took a break for a little bit and I began to do shadow work, as in I started to assess why I would have the thoughts that I would have. And to be specific, I would go beyond these daydreams of conflict with people who I had previous conflict with. They were daydreams about relationships and love and being seen in an egotistical way. I think it was around the time when I entered my second year of college is when I really began my journey of ending this cycle of maladaptive daydreaming. So anyway, I'm gonna start explaining these techniques that I use to quit maladaptive daydreaming. Keep in mind that this is something you really have to be patient for, because it took me almost an entire year to become fully clean of maladaptive daydreaming. So I think the first thing that I did to start alleviating these daydreams was by grounding myself. And by this I mean really feeling into my physical body. Now, I know a lot of people can relate to this, and I think cerebral personalities with a lot of mental activity often are very flighty. I want to say a lot of people with ADHD tend to be this way. They tend to be in a constant flight or flight. It's a constant anxious energy. I've noticed that whenever I get into this state of maladaptive daydreaming, I tend to become more anxious and I tend to get into my fight or flight mode. The biggest thing that I did to alleviate this was just becoming okay with feeling how my body feels. If you ever notice when you're really tense, that can be a tendency to just jump out of your own skin. And that was the literal case for me. I was literally running away from my own body because I did not want to feel my physical self because of that insecurity. And not everybody who goes through maladaptive daydreaming can feel that way, but it is the case for a lot of people, because the majority of people I know who have gone through this maladaptive daydreaming phase have felt that way. If you want to start feeling better within your body, I would highly recommend meditating on a daily basis. I have been doing this for I think about 3 months now, and I've finally become 100% clean of negative thoughts. And then just paying attention to when you have any tension in your body, because it feeds that urge to like jump out of your skin. Another theory on why I think that a lot of people who have maladaptive thoughts have a hard time staying in their body is because they're like metaphorically, like literally up in the clouds. Like they can't bring themselves down and feel how their body feels. And that was definitely the case with me. Like I was to the point where I was super impulsive because I didn't want to feel how my body felt because I was that high up in the clouds. I will admit it was very hard for me to start grounding myself at first because the first time is always the hardest time. I'm sure that sounds very monotonous, but it is more than true. I remember the first time that I was practicing grounding, I was in my car and I was really tensed up and I was not comfortable with being comfortable with my body. A year later, after doing this practice, I got to the point where I was okay with my body and my thoughts began to diminish and I began to focus on my surroundings. This can equate to mindfulness in a lot of different ways because mindfulness is basically the practice of being aware of your surroundings. It's the practice of engaging all of your five senses in the present moment. And I did this in so many numerous ways. Like I would often just like listen to music and really let it saturate my mind and like try to be aware of my thoughts, not let them drift off into autopilot while I was listening to music. Or I would walk or I would work out because that's one of the best ways that you can bring yourself back down into your body. It's a double benefit because not only are you taking care of your physical health by working out, but you're also taking care of your mental health. Aside from working out and just really grounding yourself in your physical body, another thing I want to mention is that I did extreme amounts of journaling. I started journaling back in late 2023 and I've been going at this for, I'd say, probably a good year. I mean, I still journal every day. I still do shadow work. In fact, I just got a new journal on shadow work. But what I did was like I hyper analyzed every single thought that I would have and I would question it and I would like metaphorically take a string and connect the dots between the thoughts that I was having and see like what's the pattern between my thoughts? Why am I having these thoughts? What is my subconscious mind doing to me? Did that for like 4 months and then I began to understand myself more, which was really helpful because then I could actually predict what my actions or reactions would be in the future based on any stimuli that happen to come into my life. I know how you feel if this is something you're ashamed of because I was ashamed of this for 6 years of my life. Like I said before, you don't have to feel ashamed of it, and this is not me telling you what to do. This is just me giving you advice on how to quit a nasty habit like this because so many people struggle from this, especially in a generation where we are so hardwired towards being cerebral to the point that it has cost us our own focus and our own presence as well as awareness. I really hope that you could take a few things away from this video and invigorate them into your own plan for quitting whatever habits you're having within your mind, and I will see you in the next one.